Hi, my name is Dan, and this video is one in a series of videos I'm doing about using magic in video games and designing magic mechanics and systems. And in this one, focusing on how the player learns new spells. It's part of a larger suite of videos that I'm doing on video game design issues and related stuff. So a lot of what I'm going to say in this video is very similar to other kinds of mechanics or systems and progression that you might have. Usually, you don't want the player to know everything at the start of a game because they get overwhelmed with too much choice and overpowered. So you don't want that. So it's fairly normal as the game progresses for players to learn new spells in your magic system and potentially to customize or specialize within that. So there may be more spells available than they're able to learn. So as I said, this is similar to other mechanics that you'll have in games, and often it's tied in with things like RPG progressions and levels and XP and all these sorts of things. And I have got a series of videos where I talk about those mechanics and progression in a bit more detail. But I do want to give you enough here if you're just dipping in and having this particular set of videos, so that you don't have to go hunting for those. I'm not going to do it in a huge amount of detail though. In fact, what I am going to do is I'm going to basically give you some options, and when I say them, these will be you'll kind of think, oh yeah, that's obvious. These are the things that are often done in games. So I'm going to give you a kind of run through what I think are some of the main strategies that can be used. And I want to say that these are not in any way meant to be mutually exclusive. And you often see games using several of these things kind of bound together and tied together. So feel free to do that. So here we go. Right. So you can release new spells when players level up, if you've got a leveling up system. You might be giving them a choice of spells and ways to specialize within that. You might be paying the player might be paying to learn spells. That might be in terms of cash, if you've got currency in your world. It might be in terms of some kind of training points or some kind of system that allows you to drip feed them the ability to learn spells. And they might need to have a cost in time as well. So potentially some games say you need to spend a certain amount of time doing this in order to learn a spell. Sometimes spells are presented as a tree, which is where you unlock the ability to get new spells as you go further down the tree. So you need to unlock one before you get the ability to progress down the tree. If you've got a larger RPG system that you're making presumably fantasy, because you've got magic involved RPG, then the spells could form the skill tree for the mage or whatever magic user class or classes you've got. Other ways of bringing a spell to a player, they could be quest rewards, they could be story unlocking. So it could be that as you progress to a strong story, potentially even quite a linear one, you have spells unlock at various points because the player's been powered up or actually taught something. It's possible to unlock them by getting to a particular location. And one example of this I can think of is the shout words in Skyrim, where you learn these things called shouts, which are effectively part of their magic system. But you have to get to particular places where you find inscriptions, and these inscriptions teach you these shouts. You can have scrolls as drops. Uh, in my mind here, technically, this could be spell books, but also in my mind, a scroll represents one spell, and a spell book represents potentially more than one spell. So I think it's more likely to be a single spell, either as something you get in a world drop from defeating a creature, potentially in treasure chests, bought from vendors, all sorts of ways of drip feeding spells to players if you're going to use scrolls for doing that. And it's quite common to use the metaphor of a spell book to describe the spells or the collection of spells that a player knows or has access to. One last one. Sometimes you have the ability to upgrade or improve spells, and that might be just having tiers of a spell. So you might have Fireball level 1, Fireball level 2, or you might have ways of applying upgrades to spells that says, improve the efficiency of a single fire-based spell by 10%, and something that allows that increase. So that's not actually learning new spells, but it's a way of enhancing spells or improving the spells that players have got. Okay, that is the main strategies. I just want to throw at you another thing now, which is a little bit of a frivolous idea. I'd say it's off the top of my head. It's not actually off the top of my head at all. This one's been brewing around in my brain for several years. It's not based on anything that I've ever seen in a game. I often have these ideas for, it'd be interesting to try this in a game. And this is one of those that's stuck with me as I think about it. I think it has potential. I think there are issues with it, but I think there's all sorts of fun that could be had with this. So the idea in this theoretical system is that actually all spells are known at the start, and the potentially biggest downside of this system is that then has a plethora of too much choice for the player. So what would need to be done is for some clear signposting as to what would be appropriate spells as they start playing. So the point of this is that when you try and use a spell, then it has a chance of catastrophic failure. And so in the mix of spells, you have weaker spells, middle spells, powerful spells, maybe epically powerful spells. And the strength of the spell is reflected by the strength of the catastrophic failure that you can have when the spell goes wrong. And the point is, when you start, that chance of catastrophic failure is almost guaranteed. You may have, 5% chance of succeeding at this spell at the lower levels when you first start. But then as you progress, then the potential for your success improves through the spells. And similarly, you learn tactics to diminish the severity of the disaster that might happen. So starting spells that you're encouraged to use at the beginning of the game, there's still a chance of failure, but the failure is quite benign. And but of course the power of the spell is quite low as well. But potentially using less powerful spells will help improve your chances in similar, more powerful spells. So it may be that you have this split into different categories of magic. So maybe you've got fire magic and nature magic and things like that. And as you use and master the lower level spells, that improves your skills in that area. So maybe you're using fireball spells, and that will help you get better at the potential for fire explosion spells. But one thing that this gives you is that if you're in a situation where you're basically stuck in combat and you know you're going to die, you have this kind of Hail Mary option, which is that it's worth a shot at this thing, even though you might die as a result, so it might be catastrophic. Actually, that small chance of success means that you might actually have a spectacular result. And if you do succeed, that would then give you some good training points in that particular spell, and you'd learn from that, and you'd get more reliable at it. Anyway, as I said, that's an idea that I've never seen, but the real reason for throwing that in isn't to just go, hey, look, aren't I clever? I can think of interesting new mechanics. Partly that, of course, because I do enjoy showing off, but partly to give you as a potential designer the inspiration that you can step out of the norm and step out of the way things are usually done, and think about novel and innovative ideas, ways of exploring different mechanics, and some of them might work and some of them might not. But these are the things that a good game designer does. Anyway, in the next video, I'm going to talk about. I've talked about classifying magic into different areas briefly in this video. I'm going to talk more about that in the next video, which I'm going to call Skills of Magic. However, that is it from me for now.